Hi. Hi, it's me, Kim from reading to you from the Urantia book. Okay, and I'm on paper 176, Tuesday evening on Mount Olivet. This is Holy Week before the crucifixion. It's Tuesday before Jesus is crucified. And they're discussing things at their camp, discussing about the destruction of Jerusalem and about Jesus's second coming is what the apostles want to know about. Later discussion at the camp. As they gathered about the campfire, some 20 of them, Thomas asked, "Since you are to return to finish the work of the kingdom, what should be our attitude while you are away on the Father's business?" As Jesus looked them over by the firelight, he answered, "And even you, Thomas, fail to comprehend what I have been saying. Have I not all this time taught you that your connection with the kingdom is spiritual and individual, wholly a matter of personal experience in the Spirit by the faith realization that you are a son of God? What more shall I say? The downfall of nations, the crash of empires, the destruction of the unbelieving Jews, the end of an age, even the end of the world. What have these things to do with one who believes this gospel and who has hid his life in the surety of the eternal kingdom? You are God-knowing and gospel-believing. You who are God-knowing and gospel-believing have already received the assurances of eternal life. Since your lives have been lived in the Spirit and for the Father, nothing can be of serious concern to you. Kingdom builders, the accredited citizens of the heavenly world, are not to be disturbed by temporal upheavals or perturbed by terrestrial cataclysms. What does it matter to you who believe this gospel of the kingdom if nations overturn, the age ends, or all things visible crash, since you know that your life is the gift of the Son, and that it is eternally secure in the Father? Having lived the temporal life by faith, and having yielded the fruits of the Spirit as the righteousness of loving service for your fellows, you can confidently look forward to the next step in the eternal career with the same survival faith that has carried you through your first and earthly adventure in sonship with God. Each generation of believers should carry on their work in view of the possible return of the Son of Man, exactly as each individual believer carries forward his life work in view of inevitable and ever impending natural death. When you have by faith once established yourself as a son of God, nothing else matters as regards the surety of survival. But make no mistake, this survival faith is a living faith, and it increasingly manifests the fruits of that divine spirit which first inspired it in the human heart. That you have once accepted sonship in the heavenly kingdom will not save you in the face of the knowing and persistent rejection of those truths which have to do with the progressive spiritual fruit bearing of the sons of God in the flesh. The survival faith is a living faith. So it is not that once you have accepted sonship, it will not save you if you reject it. So it's like you can change your mind about this in effect. So you can be saved, but then you can, if you're not complying with the changes in your behavior and your life and your attitudes that go with this new kingdom, It can be, taken from you, but it's really like you changed your own mind. It's like, yeah, you're kind of going along with it on the surface, but in fact, you weren't really all there with it. Um, you who have been with me in the Father's business on earth can even now desert the kingdom if you find that you love not the way of the Father's service for mankind. So yeah, you can change your mind. You can desert the Father if you have a mind to do that, if you're not really there with it. Okay. As individuals and as a generation of believers, hear me while I speak a parable. There was a certain great man who, before starting out on a long journey to another country, called all his trusted servants before him and delivered into their hands all his goods. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, and so on down through the entire group of honored stewards. To each he entrusted his goods according to their several abilities, and then he set out on his journey. When their Lord had departed, his servants set themselves to work to gain profits from the wealth entrusted to them. Immediately he who had received 5 talents began to trade with them, and very soon had made a profit of another 5 talents. In like manner, he who had received 2 talents soon had gained 2 more. And so did all of these servants make gains for their master, except him who received but 1 talent. He went away by himself and dug a hole in the earth where he hid his Lord's money. Presently, the Lord of those servants unexpectedly returned and called upon his stewards for a reckoning. And when they had all been called before their master, he who had received the 5 talents came forward with the money which had been entrusted to him, and brought 5 additional talents, saying, Lord, you gave me 5 talents to invest, and I am glad to present 5 other talents as my gain. And then his Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will now set you as steward over many. Enter forthwith into the joy of your Lord. And then he who had received the 2 talents came forward, saying, Lord, you delivered into my hands 2 talents, and behold, I have gained these other 2 talents. And his Lord then said to him, Well done, good and faithful steward. You also have been faithful over a few things, and I will now set you over many. Enter you into the joy of your Lord. And then there came to the accounting he who had received the 1 talent. This servant came forward, saying, Lord, I knew you, and realized that you were a shrewd man, in that you expected gains where you had not personally labored. Therefore was I afraid to risk aught of that which was entrusted to me. I safely hid your talent in the earth. Here it is. You now have what belongs to you. So this last servant, he refused to take any risks for serving God. He didn't want to risk investing this, or it would be in line with, I think, telling people or confessing his faith in God and going out and proclaiming the good word and doing good works, and talking to people about it. That's taking a risk, because you don't know whenever you're preaching or talking to somebody about God, you don't know if that person's going to say, well, yeah, sure, and you're whatever, you're off your rocker, I don't know, I don't care about that. So they might look at you in a funny way, like, oh, you're a Jesus freak or whatever, but so that's a risk, and this person didn't want to do that. But his lord answered, "You are an indolent and slothful steward. By your own words, you confess that you knew I would require of you an accounting with reasonable profit, such as your diligent fellow servants have this day rendered. Knowing this, you ought therefore to have at least put my money into the hands of the bankers, that on my return I might have received my own with interest." And then to the chief steward his lord said, "Take away this one talent from this unprofitable servant and give it to him who has the 10 talents." So they mean that from those who have little, even that what they have will be taken. That's what this means. It doesn't mean that, take away things from the poor people. That's not really what it means. So if you only have a little bit of faith, you're going to even lose that faith unless you invest your faith and live according to your faith and do the works that requires. Like here, this is really pretty little. I'm just, talking to probably not a very large audience on YouTube here, but I'm trying to do something, and if I can reach a few people, then I can bring that to God and say, this is what I did. I'm not afraid to say this. I'm not afraid to take a risk and tell you what I believe, and to bring more awareness and attention to this gospel. Then that's good. I hope that's, well, I don't want to take that for granted, but I think I'm doing the right thing for doing that, for talking to you about this. To everyone who has, more shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him who has not, even that which he has shall be taken away. And I think they're not talking so much about money or talents. I think it's talking about faith, that faith is power. And if you have faith and are exercising that faith, you'll get more faith. You'll have more faith and more power in the kingdom. And if you only have a little faith and aren't willing to risk that, then that's going to be taken from you. You cannot stand still in the affairs of the eternal kingdom. You cannot stand still. You have to keep working at it. You have to keep working and keep trying and keep growing. My Father requires all his children to grow in grace and in a knowledge of the truth. You who know these truths must yield the increase of the fruits of the Spirit and manifest a growing devotion to the unselfish service of your fellow servants. And remember that, inasmuch as you minister to one of the least of my brethren, you have done this service to me. So go forth and serve all of your brothers and sisters, even the least of them. And so should you go about the work of the Father's business, now and henceforth, even forevermore. Carry on until I come. In faithfulness, do that which is entrusted to you, and thereby shall you be ready for the reckoning call of death. And having thus lived for the glory of the Father and the satisfaction of the Son, you shall enter with joy and exceedingly great pleasure into the eternal service of the everlasting kingdom. Truth is living. The Spirit of truth is ever leading the children of light into new realms of spiritual reality and divine service. You are not given truth to crystallize into settled, safe, and honored forms. Right, because then it denigrates it into just ritual, and that's not living truth. That's, and that's a lot of what the Jews did. They crystallized this truth, and it was good, it was okay, into like, okay, rest on the Sabbath day, or keep a clean home. They crystallize that into, you have to, clean your home with this special kind of detergent and not with that one, and only on, certain ways, and you have to only eat this certain kind of thing with, So all of that is ritual, that's hard crystallized truth that's and it's dead because it's risk free, that you have to go forth and take chances to keep your faith alive, to keep your connection with God alive. You have to go out and act on it and take those risks. Your revelation of truth must be so enhanced by passing through your personal experience that new beauty and actual spiritual gains will be disclosed to all who behold your spiritual fruits, and in consequence thereof are led to glorify the Father who is in heaven. Only those faithful servants who thus grow in the knowledge of the truth and who thereby develop the capacity for divine appreciation of spiritual realities can ever hope to enter fully into the joy of their Lord. What a sorry sight for successive generations of the professed followers of Jesus to say regarding their stewardship of divine truth, "Here, Master, is the truth you committed to us 100 or 1,000 years ago. We have lost nothing. We have faithfully preserved all you gave us. We have allowed no changes to be made in that which you taught us. Here is the truth you gave us." So that's not good, because living truth changes and grows. That's not it. But such a plea concerning spiritual indolence will not justify the barren steward of truth in the presence of the Master. In accordance with the truth committed to your hands, will the Master of truth require a reckoning. So the truth is alive, it grows, and we're the steward of it. That doesn't mean, bury it under a rock and keep it from changing. That means be true to the Spirit, because the times that we live in change, and the Spirit of the truth doesn't change, but the truth itself, how we present that truth in whatever context, will change, because the context always is changing in a world that changes. Yeah. In the next world, you will be asked to give an account of the endowments and stewardships of this world, whether inherent talents are few or many. A just and merciful reckoning must be faced. If endowments are used only in selfish pursuits and no thought is bestowed upon the higher duty of obtaining increased yield of the fruits of the Spirit, as they are manifested in the ever-expanding service of men and the worship of God, such selfish stewards must accept the consequences of their deliberate choosing. So yeah, if you choose to hide your faith under a rock, and then there's consequences for that too. Yeah. And how much like all selfish mortals was this unfaithful servant with the one talent, in that he blamed his slothfulness directly upon his Lord. Right, because he wanted to say, "Well, you told me to keep it for you, and yeah, so I'm not risking anything." How prone is man, when he is confronted with the failures of his own making, to put the blame upon others, oftentimes even upon those who least deserve it. Said Jesus that night as they went to their rest, "Freely have ye received, therefore freely should you give of the truth of heaven, and in the giving will this truth multiply and show forth the increasing light of saving grace, even as you minister it." So I think that's really beautiful, and that says a lot about the difference between some preaching, some doctrines that are just for the sake of preserving a doctrine, or just for preserving the power of those who are preaching it. And there's a lot of that kind of preaching, and that's not what we're doing. Yeah, so faith, let the faith live inside you and grow inside you, and God's truth will be there, and you will manifest all the fruits of the Spirit when you don't allow your faith to be just this comfort device. When you have to go out there and risk what you know, risk it. Okay, thank you very much. See you next time.